everybody. Welcome to another version of Monday Mojo. This week's quote: any intelligent fool can make things bigger, more complex, and more violent. It takes a touch of genius and a lot of courage to move in the opposite direction. That comes from Albert Einstein, who once wrote that the spirit of learning and creative thought were actually lost in strict rote learning. What if you were captured and placed in a prison? Let's make it even worse by assuming you were unlawfully placed in custody. No broken laws, no dastardly deed, simply stripped of your freedom. What would you do? Would you kick and scream and cry, "Foul play"? But what if nobody could hear you? What if you knew for sure that nobody was coming for you? What would this do to you mentally, physically, after having had it so easy, nice hot meals whenever you wanted, a cool drink to quench your thirst, a safe house with a neighborhood watch program? Now imagine you had the chance to be given drugs that would numb the pain and suffering. Maybe just a little something to help you sleep through each day. Even better, you could actually have the choice of drugs or alcohol. What would you take? Now let's up the ante. If you took it, then the trade-off would be that you were forever trapped. There would be no possibility for escape, and you would be confined for the rest of your life. Would you still do it? Or maybe if you stayed in that stupor long enough and caused no uproar, then you'd be allowed to perform some hard labor that you could not stand, and for 8 hours a day, and then go back to your cell. Is this really the path you would choose? Maybe you know people who live like this every day. Maybe you've even found yourself living like this. Well, you see, there's always a way out. There's always an escape plan, a map for your own victory. But we keep sitting back waiting for someone else to deliver it. As we remain in our sedated state, we whine and complain that circumstances just don't seem to be cooperating. We think there's no escape. But that's just it. The escape tool is the ability to think. But as soon as we're challenged to do that, we freeze like a deer in the headlights, unable to save ourselves. So we do nothing until the pain gets so overwhelming that we hit the fork in the road to either submit or choose the path of inspirational dissatisfaction. This week I was speaking with a friend of mine that was stressed out because he was having some challenges with his son. When I asked if he'd been tested for learning disabilities, I was actually told that when given an IQ test, he scored 1 point below genius. When challenged in a typical classroom, he became disruptive by jumping on the ground and rolling himself up in a carpet. This was the exact behavior that the school didn't know how to deal with. So, of course, what they suggested was that he immediately be put on a drug treatment. The story made me want to jump out of my skin. I mean, here is a kid that tests at the level of genius. And let me remind you that we're obsessed with measuring so we can categorize these kids. And all we want to do is drug the guy so he can't think. But I'm sure once he's in that stupor and imprisoned internally, he'll finally behave, and that Jupiter will align with Mars again. Oh, and by the way, when his father, distraught over the repeated insistence that this kid is not right, asked his son what happened that day in class, and the kid replied sarcastically, "Dad, they were tracing numbers." Suddenly had a vision of Einstein sitting in a class being told that he had to trace numbers while he was daydreaming about traveling alongside a beam of light. Maybe he would have rolled up in a carpet too, figuring that if they were going to treat him like a juvenile, he might as well have some fun. Now, I'm certainly not saying that we should let chaos run the classroom as kids try to find their inner genius, but I am making a plea for common sense. If the kid blows one of our illustrious tests out of the water, then perhaps we should take that as evidence and do something with it instead of drugging these ADHD bad kids into a drug-induced personal prison. As I grow older, I want to ensure that we're not a country of stiffs. I want that kid in a science lab somewhere, questioning conventional wisdom. I encouraged his father to fight that fight because that kid just might be the one who cures cancer. Or how about all those hyper kids that can't wait until sports time? I want them out there because they might end up being the ones that protect us on the police force or the battlefield. I want them to be strong, fearless, and aggressive. So we want this fine balance where we want our kids to learn that discipline is a key ingredient to a more stable and fruitful life, but we're in danger of going overboard. The most important part of teaching, in my opinion, is provoking other people to think, to find their inner light switch. We must teach our kids and each other that thinking is the most powerful weapon in the world, and that the coolest part is that we all have the same ability to do it. So what if people are supposedly smarter than you are on paper? What does that even mean? There are all types of brilliance: social, physical, intellectual, organizational, artistic, and on and on. The best news is that we're all wired to be really great at something. But what happens to that seed depends on many factors, but none more important than whether or not you choose to think about it and then act upon it. So the chisel and saw that you need to escape your prison are right there in your head. But the warning is that you might be your own slave master. Are we imprisoning our own thoughts? Are we drugging our inner Einsteins and the future of our children? Maybe to begin our escape, we might just want to roll up in a rug and be kids for a few minutes. We just might awaken a bunch of hidden geniuses. Hey, this is another thinking tool brought to you by freethinkingtools.com. And I want to remind you to share this with everybody that you can. And we'll see you next time here on Monday Mojo. I'm Danny Griffin. Have a great week.